The night air was biting cold, and the wind howled through the streets like a lost soul. In a small, quiet town, nestled at the edge of the forest, stood a modest house where Emma lived with her parents and younger brother, Ben. It was a peaceful place until that night. Inside, Emma sat curled up on the couch, her favorite book in hand, with Whiskers, her loyal gray tabby, nestled comfortably on her lap. Whiskers had always been a curious cat, and Emma often wondered if she had a sixth sense. Over the years, she'd come to trust the way Whiskers would act before something significant would happen. Tonight, however, Emma felt an unease that she couldn't shake. Her heart pounded with a strange feeling, but she brushed it off, focusing on the soft purring of her cat. But the unease was not unfounded. The moment the doorbell rang, Emma's spine stiffened. Her family exchanged confused glances. It was nearly midnight, and no one ever visited at this hour. Emma's father, George, stood up cautiously and went to the door, his face filled with concern. The instant he opened the door, a group of men stormed in. They were masked, dressed in dark clothing, their eyes cold and menacing. Emma's breath caught in her throat as one of the men shoved her father aside and demanded everyone sit down. "Don't make a sound," one of them growled, his voice gravelly, filled with anger. "Give us everything you've got." Emma's mother, Sarah, was shaking uncontrollably, clutching Ben tightly to her side. Emma held Whiskers closer, her heart hammering in her chest. The burglars moved swiftly, collecting valuable items, jewelry, electronics, cash, everything they could carry. Emma's hands trembled, and she whispered, "Stay quiet, Whiskers." The cat, as always, seemed to understand. She didn't meow, didn't stir, just kept her eyes on Emma with a knowing gaze. The burglars took their phones, ensuring they couldn't call the police. Emma felt trapped. She watched helplessly as the men moved around, rifling through her belongings. They were threatening her family now, their voices harsh as they demanded more. They'd taken everything of value, and Emma feared the worst. Just when she thought things couldn't get worse, one of the burglars noticed Whiskers. He sneered, his eyes narrowing. "What do we have here? A little kitty playing house?" Emma's heart sank. She could see the evil in his eyes. The last thing she wanted was for anything to happen to Whiskers. "Please, leave her alone," she pleaded softly, her voice breaking. The burglar chuckled darkly. "What are you going to do? Call for help?" He raised his gun, pointing it at her family. "No one is getting out of here until we say so." Emma's blood ran cold as she watched him, knowing there was nothing they could do. Whiskers, however, wasn't just going to sit by and watch. The cat's body grew tense, her fur bristling. Emma noticed a glint of something unusual in her eyes, an urgency that Emma had never seen before. Whiskers slipped off Emma's lap, moving gracefully toward the open window. No one noticed. They were too distracted, too focused on terrorizing the family. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she saw Whiskers make her way to the window, slip through it, and disappear into the night. A part of Emma wanted to stop her, but something deep inside told her Whiskers had a plan. The cat knew what she was doing. The seconds felt like hours as Emma's family remained at the mercy of the burglars. But Whiskers, despite being small, had more courage than anyone in the room. Outside, the cold night air bit at Whiskers' paws as she padded down the empty street. Her fur was sleek against the wind as she ran, her instinct guiding her. She had no idea where she was going, but there was a fire inside her, a sense of urgency that she couldn't ignore. She had to find help. She had to save Emma and her family. She ran faster, darting between alleyways, her mind sharp. And then, just as she reached the edge of town, she saw it, the flicker of lights from a police patrol car. Whiskers stopped in her tracks, the scent of justice in the air. There were 2 officers standing by the car, talking. The officers didn't notice her at first. Whiskers, her heart racing, meowed loudly, hoping to catch their attention. One of the officers looked down, surprised to see the small tabby, but there was no time for questions. "Hey, little one, what's going on?" the officer asked, crouching to pet her. But Whiskers wasn't interested in affection. She darted away, looking back to ensure the officers were following. She had no time to explain. The officers hesitated but instinctively followed her as she ran towards Emma's house. She glanced back to make sure they were still behind her, urging them with each flick of her tail. They exchanged confused glances, unsure of what was happening, but Whiskers kept leading them forward, pushing them to act quickly. As they reached the house, Whiskers paused at the front gate and looked back at the officers. Her eyes seemed to plead with them, her silent desperation more powerful than words. The officers finally understood. They rushed forward, drawing their guns cautiously as they entered the house. Inside, the burglars were in the middle of their operation, unaware of the officers' approach. The moment they saw the police, chaos erupted. One of the burglars lunged toward the door, but the officers were faster. They subdued him quickly, and in a matter of moments, the rest of the burglars were caught. The house was filled with the sound of sirens as backup arrived to take the criminals away. Emma and her family were freed, shaking with fear but alive. Emma ran to the officers, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you for saving us," she whispered, her voice full of relief and gratitude. The officers looked at each other in disbelief. "It wasn't us, it was her," one of them said, pointing to Whiskers, who had been quietly watching the scene unfold. Emma turned to Whiskers, who stood in the doorway, her green eyes shining with pride. "You saved us," Emma said, her voice cracking with emotion as she knelt down to embrace her cat. "You were so brave. I don't know what we would have done without you." Whiskers purred softly, rubbing against Emma's leg, content and calm. Emma hugged her tightly, as if never wanting to let go. She had always known Whiskers was special, but tonight, her cat had proven just how much love and loyalty she truly had. The officers, still stunned, exchanged another glance. "She's not just a cat. She's a hero," one of them said. As the night unfolded and the danger faded, Emma sat down, cradling Whiskers in her arms. She was alive because of this brave little cat who had led the way, taking risks and never giving up. She knew Whiskers wasn't just a pet, she was family. A guardian, a protector, and the most unexpected hero. From that night on, Emma never doubted the strength of love. Sometimes, the smallest creatures could show the greatest courage, and Whiskers had proven that love, loyalty, and bravery could make all the difference in the world. Whiskers was no longer just a cat, she was a legend in their town. Emma would forever tell the story of how her little cat had saved her family, reminding everyone that bravery often comes in the most unexpected forms.